In the last video, Preparata described the strange arc of the 1920s, a Germany stabilized through foreign loans, an artificial prosperity, and then collapse, the withdrawal of credit, the global crash, the fracturing of Weimar. Now we enter the decisive hinge, 1930 to 1933. These are the years in which democracy ceases to function. Institutions begin to govern through emergency, and Hitler moves from fringe agitator to appointed ruler. This is where the Conjuring, in Preparata's telling, reaches completion. Crisis government and the death of normal politics. Preparata emphasizes that Hitler's rise cannot be understood as a simple electoral wave. Weimar does not collapse because a majority suddenly embraces Nazism wholeheartedly. It collapses because normal parliamentary politics breaks, coalitions fail, the center cannot govern, the economy deteriorates. And increasingly, Germany is ruled by emergency decree, not deliberation, not consensus, administration. This is a major Archangel video theme. When crisis becomes permanent, executive authority expands. Democratic life adapts around exception. The public does not choose dictatorship in a single moment. The system drifts towards it through breakdown. Austerity and despair as political fuel. The early 1930s are years of mass unemployment, desperation, social disintegration. Preparata frames austerity policies not as neutral necessity, but as accelerants of collapse. Economic suffering becomes political radicalization. The middle loses faith, the unemployed lose patience, the old parties lose credibility. This is the landscape in which extremist movements flourish, not because they offer careful programs, but because they offer certainty. Enemy, myth, redemption. Crisis does what propaganda alone cannot. It makes the unthinkable plausible. Hitler as instrument, not merely demagogue. Here Preparata's distinctive thesis sharpens again. Hitler is not treated as an isolated genius who hypnotized the nation. He is treated as a figure enabled by institutional actors, industrialists, conservatives, aristocratic circles, those who believed they could harness him. This is the conjuring logic. The reactionary pawn is summoned because elites fear the alternative more, Bolshevism and the potential of a Russian and German Eurasian embrace, social revolution, disorder, the collapse of hierarchy. So Hitler becomes, in this framing, a counter-revolutionary instrument, not pure outsider, not pure inevitability, but someone the system begins to tolerate, then embrace, then install. Appointment, power handed over. One of the most haunting realities of 1933 is that Hitler does not seize power by storming the Capitol. He is appointed. He is brought into office through legal mechanisms. This is a central point Preparata wants to emphasize. Catastrophes often arrive through procedure, not coups, not invasions, but administration. Elites believe that they can control the demagogue, that they can box him in, that he will serve their purposes. And this is one of history's recurring illusions, that extremists can be managed, that monsters can be used, that violence can be contained. The conjuring always begins with the belief that the conjurer remains in control. This pattern is not unique. In 1917, German authorities permitted Vladimir Lenin to return to Russia, believing his presence would weaken an enemy state. They assumed they could direct the consequences. They could not. In Italy, conservative elites supported Benito Mussolini as a bulwark against socialism. They believed he would restore order and remain manageable. He did not. Across contexts, the calculation repeats. Radical forces are invited in as tools of stabilization. They rarely remain tools. That said, Hitler's rise had many causes: German nationalism, Versailles resentment, economic collapse, political violence, institutional fragility, elite miscalculation. Preparata highlights one dimension intensely, however: the strategic and financial architecture surrounding Weimar, and the willingness of powerful actors to gamble with reaction. Even if one does not accept every element of his intentional framing, the structural lesson remains: democracy can collapse through emergency. Extremism can enter through legality. Catastrophe can arrive through appointment. Monsters are rarely purely external. They are often invited. So Chapter 4 brings us to the threshold. The Republic has fractured. Crisis has become norm. Hitler is installed. And the Conjuring is no longer metaphor. It is political fact. In the next episode, Preparata moves beyond Hitler's appointment to the 1930s themselves. Rearmament, appeasement, and the argument that the Nazi regime was steered towards its ultimate function: war. Because in this book, Hitler is not the endpoint. He is the instrument of the next catastrophe.